Welcome to another episode of the 30-Minute Podcast, full topics in half an hour for the intellectually curious. I'm Mariposa.
And I am the IZZ.
Lanita Mitchell Blackwell is a powerhouse entrepreneur with many accolades. As an attorney and CPA, she's been noted in her field. She's also founded a media company and a publishing company, which published 7 best-selling authors. Now, through her Leading Through Living app, Lanita touches thousands as a certified Christian life coach. Let's hear her inspiring story.
Today, we're going to talk to an entrepreneur.
Extraordinaire.
Yes. An emancipator. We're still going to talk about that.
Yes.
And so this week, we decided, we were having a conversation, correct?
Yes, we have.
And I told you that I wanted people to be emancipated into getting their ideas out.
Yes.
All people.
Yes.
People of different socioeconomic statuses.
Yes.
People of different ethnicities. People of different
hues. I see the air quotes.
Right. People of, I hate to say race, because it's the human race, but, people that check different things in a box. So it is my pleasure. Your pleasure, our pleasure to introduce who?
Miss Lanita Mitchell Blackwell.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yes, great to see you, and thank you so much for
stop. we got fans in here today. Stop.
Yeah, it's so awesome to have you be a part of the program. So it is amazing when you look at all your accolades, because as I was thinking about how we were going to start this conversation, it's like, it's only a 30-minute podcast, right?
Okay, so since it's a 30-minute podcast, let me jump on in because I want to know some things. Okay. I have some things that I want to know.
Well, I'm ready. Let's do it.
So your book, I was seeing your book, it's Knocked Down, Set Straight. We'll get to that later. But it said ESQ, CPA, CCLC. Now, I know I went to a couple of classes at a building of higher learning. So I know that you're a lawyer. That means you're an attorney. That means you're a certified public accountant.
I am.
And that CCLC.
Christian life coach, certified Christian life coach.
I thought that's what that said.
Okay.
So you're a life coach as well. Okay,
yes.
So you've meshed that all into not just one business, but different businesses.
That's correct.
Okay, so I want to get into just one specific part of who you are.
Yeah.
Tell me, what is it that drove you to be a publisher, to kind of have like a publishing house? And then second part, I'm going to come back to it again, is the differences between independent as a publisher versus big time for people that want to get into that.
Actually, it started out because I needed to publish my own book. I would say about 7 years ago or so, I was in a place where I had rolled off a bunch of boards and I had not taken my turn to go on some new ones. And so I had a defined period of time where it was very quiet in my life. And that did not happen often. I was not intentional as I am now about being quiet and really rejuvenating and taking time to see, okay, what's next? What trouble we going to get in, Lord, you know? And so at that point, I birthed my book, and it is the first one called Leading Through Living, a guide for women seeking growth through leadership. And I share a lot of my struggles as a young woman, finding a place that I could be mentored, developed, and then waking up one day and realizing that I was the person I've been waiting for all of my life, and that the only way that I was going to progress was to help other people. And so it was 49 pages, which is very small when you're talking about trying to shop publishers. And I was very definite that I wanted it released by my birthday, which was in March. And so I did it myself. I published my own book, and the first cover was a little multi-ethnic lady. And that's why I smiled when y'all were talking about diversity, right? And it really caught on and it resonated with people. It wasn't just women either. It was men. And I was very shocked, white men, because I was being invited to speak at really large organizations based on that book. And what it came down to is that there are just so many people out here who need help. And so people saw that. They asked me to help them with their book. They paid me some money. So then I became a publisher, and I was able to basically walked them past a lot of the mistakes that I made. And so they published their books, and the first time they became bestsellers. And I didn't do the bestseller until my second book came out, and then it basically brought in the first one. And that was a really wonderful and empowering experience. So that's how I became a publisher.
Okay.
Yeah.
So without giving away your secrets, because we want people to come to you, we want people to say, hey, I want you to be my publisher. Walk us through maybe 5 steps. You said that you could help someone to not make the mistakes you made. What would you say if I ask you for 5 things to becoming published? What would you say?
Absolutely. And I don't mind giving good information. People are going to come and they use you or they're not, because most of the people who come to me, it's not that they don't have the capacity to do it themselves. It's they don't have the time. The first thing, if you really want to be successful in publishing your book, is realizing that, yes, you have the intelligence or the AQ to do it, but you don't have the time that you want to dedicate to it. And so you need to hire somebody that you can trust to take your baby, because your book is your baby. This is your work. This is your intellectual property, to market. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you got to protect your child. Just like you don't just drop your kid at some stranger's house, you don't do that to your book. You got to get your work copyrighted, and you need to ensure that it is being professionally handled. So that's a decent editor. That's someone who is going to take the graphics seriously for your cover. You need to get professional pictures done. Even if at first you don't have a big budget, almost everybody at this point has a smartphone, and the cameras on those things are amazing. Go dress at least waist up. I don't care if you're just running around in your boxies or your tighty-whities, but at least from waist up, put on something decent looking and do your face, get a haircut, right?
Yeah.
And get a nice picture taken of yourself. The next thing is you got to talk. There is no getting around that. I tell people all the time, if you want your book to sell, you got to talk about your book. And I don't care how small the audience is, you will notice a direct correlation between your book sales and your speaking. So every interview you do, every time you go and do a speech, every time you are talking to someone at your church, wherever you are, if you're talking about your book, you're going to see sales. And that's it. And then the last thing regarding the bestseller campaign, it's actually not hard to do. It just takes you being very intentional. So you gather all of your friends and your family members, and you have them all focused together and purchase within a defined period of time. And then you're tracking the metrics on whatever medium you're choosing to sell on. I love Amazon. It's easy, it's quick, and normally it's very inexpensive when you look at other publishing options. And so it's a lot easier to track that and bring it through bestseller that way. So those are my little steps.
So for the intellectually curious, are you saying that different platforms, I guess, so to speak, have different metrics for what makes a bestseller?
Absolutely, they do. I did some research on how to be a bestseller on the New York Times list. And it is buried. It is hard to find. But there is a link, and it does say that the bestseller list for the New York Times is not always based on the units sold. That the editorial board has the right to select who goes on that list. Whereas with Amazon, it truly is based on units sold. There is no glad handing, there's no palling around, there's no cronyism there. And there's no manipulating it. I mean, it is based on individual, unique sales. So I would say when you're looking at how to do this, that you're not looking at how to game the system. I don't approve of methods like that, because not only is it disingenuous to your audience, but you're robbing yourself of the opportunity to grow something pure and beautiful, and to be transparent with the people who are coming to you.
And that makes a lot of sense. Well, who knew that the New York Times bestseller list was like the Grammys? Like you have to get the nod, so to speak, even though you could have a great product, but if you're not selected.
I know.
Oh, okay. Congratulations. So then the thing of it is, so small grassroots authors, probably that is such a high bar. So then it's great to be able to work with other companies or self-publish based on the tips that you share. So I think that's really, really important. One of the other things you mentioned that I definitely want to make sure we dig into, you mentioned the AQ.
Yes.
And I know that you developed this system because you talk about it in your current book, the Aggregate Intelligence Enhancement System, which you have copyrighted, trademarked. This is your intellectual property. Tell us what that entails. I think it's very brilliant.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. So every person is born with 4 quotients, and most people are familiar with it, at least 3, right? So we all know about your IQ. You're tested in grade school on that, right? So
Right.
that is your ability to take information, process it, and basically regurgitate it. It's how you function in the world. Then there's your EQ, which more people are starting to talk about that, right? So that's the emotional intelligence quotient. EQ. And that is not just how you feel, but how you process how other people feel. A lot of empathy, a lot of compassion there, and being able to utilize that information to make very good decisions, not just professionally, but personally as well, right? So this is totally and completely about relationships. More on spiritual quotient, so SQ. More people are starting to focus there. So it's beyond religiosity. This is not just about whether you're Christian or you're Muslim or you're Jewish, right? This is your personal relationship with something that you know that is bigger than you. Now, whether you call it a name or you just know that there is something out there, you know that you are part of a larger world, a larger system. And so that you are always working to improve yourself, and whether you call yourself self, soul, source, whatever. And you're using that information to make your environment better because you understand that you are in control with everything that goes around you. Now, I've taken all 3 of those and compiled those, and I call that the AQ, the aggregate intelligence. So that is the 4th dimension. That's the 4th grid, the 4th estate that is created when we combine all of them together. And the example that I use in the book is that of a pie. At all times, you are whole. That's your AQ. But depending on what's going on in your life, one quotient might need to rise up and be stronger than the others to take you through a certain situation. For instance, if you are having marital problems, you don't need your IQ right now. You need EQ and SQ rising high and strong. Because if you're serious about saving your marriage, you don't want to intellectualize it. You don't want to beat them down, talk them down, judge them. All the things that we do when we know we're right and we are saying what we need to say. No, this is the time for love and compassion and empathy and mercy and grace. That is what is coming up with EQ and SQ. Conversely, when you're on a job interview, during that time, you really do need IQ and EQ to rise. But at all times, you are one being, the AQ, the aggregate intelligence.
Phenomenal. I love it.
This is a 30-minute podcast, so I'll hold that. I'll hold.
Yeah, there's a lot.
There's a lot to. You might season 2, 3, 4. You might have to come.
I'm
back.
happy to come back. Thank you.
So, getting into that AQ.
Yes.
Did you develop that with that book, or have you always realized it and then just decided, let me birth it, let me create it and put it into from intellectual property and everything into just a system that is tangible for people?
Right. So actually, this was birthed through this book, my 4th book, Knock Down, Set Straight, Face It, Speak It, Forgive It, Release It. And it came because I went through a really intense time in my life. I had gotten to a place where I was publishing magazines. At one point, we had 7 under the flagship media company, Bold Favor Media Group. And they actually were getting to the place where they were being profitable. We had a award-winning award show, and we were being invited to cover wonderful events like Soul Train. Like, we weren't chasing folks down anymore.
Right.
But I was very clearly told, you have to put that down. Everything that you say that you want to achieve, we're going to get there, but that has to be put down. And now I remember being very angry with Holy Spirit because I was like, well, why now when we finally got the secret to the sauce, right? And what came is that every experience is not about the end result. It's not about winning. We forget that life truly is the journey. It is not getting to the destination point. And if you're not enjoying it, if it's always creating all of this strife and struggle and a lot of physical pain, which it was within me. I had been through a lot of surgeries and medication. And I had gotten to the place where I had stage 4 endometriosis, which is the uncontrolled growth of uterine cells outside of the uterus. And they had attached to all my organs.
Oh, wow.
And I had to have extensive surgeries. And it left me really banged up. But I kept on pushing. And I got to the place where I had some decisions to make. Do I want to be around for my daughter's graduation? Yes. Do I want to see my grandchildren? Absolutely, one day. But I was not going to be able to do that keeping the pace that I was keeping, because I don't really know how to do things small. It's go big or go home.
Yeah, that award show, I mean, it was unbelievable. It's just so first class. I loved it.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And so in going through the healing process and really digging into everything that had happened and coming to that place of silence, because when you're healing, there's nothing else but you in your hospital bed. So you have a lot of time to think. And that's where aggregate intelligence came from, that everything that I had going through, everything that I'd experienced was purposeful. It was intentional, and it was necessary for me to be the person that I am today. That being said, it was only useful if shared, because the experience was not just mine. It's for everyone. And so it's one of the reasons I really appreciate the opportunity to come on your show and share. So thank you.
And so that system, can they find that? Because I know you have Empire Builder, you have Leading Through Living. Yeah. So is that now ingrained into those systems as well? Or are you just getting ready to develop and come out with something for the people?
Something for the people. So, and that should be dropping in September. It's been very interesting these past few months with COVID. A lot of things had to be changed because that program was supposed to be released in September live. And so it's taking all of it and putting it in a format that is still very beneficial to the user, but online, because I still want to release Labor Day.
Yeah, timelines have definitely shifted into COVID, but I know you also have the app.
I do.
And so is that one of the mechanisms that you could possibly use for it?
Oh, absolutely. And it will be loaded on the app. It's Leading Through Living, and you can download it from the Google Play Store or from Apple, and you can download it free. And there is a subscription part to it, which will be where the trainings will be.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we're going to take a couple of minutes for a break. But before we go, I want you have so many things. Give it to the people. We're going to give it to them twice. But before we go to this commercial break, give the people how they can get in contact with you.
The best way is my website, which is my name, Lynita, spelled with a Y, Lynita, MitchellBlackwell.com. And you can also follow me on social media. And it's just my name, Lynita Mitchell Blackwell.
Okay, we'll be right back.
The G-Spot Creation. Custom design hats adorned with carefully select decor that inspires undeniable individuality. Clean, edgy, unique. With carefully selected adornments and hand-stitched embellishments, each hat is a statement piece that garners attention as you enter a room. The hat with the button. The button represents the cohesive relationship created when your hat completes the wardrobe. Find G-Spot Creations at the-g-spot-creation.myshopify.com. The G-Spot Creations. Get buttoned up.
Okay, and we're back
with the 30-minute podcast. So once again, if you don't know, we're here with Lynita Mitchell Blackwell, Esquire, CPA, CCLC, Christian life coach, certified public accountant, and attorney extraordinaire, an entrepreneur extraordinaire as well. Absolutely. So this is the 30-minute podcast for the intellectually curious, full topics in half an hour. I'm intellectually curious. You kind of before the break, we're talking about an award show, and y'all kind of glossed that in. And I know that there's going to be somebody out there that has ADHD like me, and this is going to bother them. Tell us a little bit quick about that award show.
So the Bowl Awards was conceived as a way to recognize people who were doing wonderful things but weren't being highlighted because it was, I mean, let's just be honest, in most culture, it's the drama. Where was everybody's attention 2 weeks ago? Will and Jada and the entanglement, right? And so people
That's a year old. You know, that came out a year. But I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. But I'm saying that to say, what about the people who were feeding the homeless? What about the people who were making sure people were clothed during this pandemic time? Nobody was talking about them. What about the people who have been working all this time at Kroger, Walmart,
Nonstop.
Publix,
Front
nonstop?
lines.
They don't have a red table. That's why you don't know.
Right.
And they don't have Jada's mama. Shout out to Jada's mama.
Right. So, so we created the Bold Awards to recognize people like that who normally don't get the recognition. And it started off with about 100 people, and we grew it every year to the point the last time we had almost 400 people there. And people came, even it was a torrential rain that day, and we ran out of food, which is horrifying. As a Southern woman, you never run out of food, but we did because we were overwhelmed with the number of people who were there. And it was just beautiful and phenomenal. We had it at the Douglasville Conference Center in Douglasville, Georgia, which is a suburb of Atlanta. And the entertainment was phenomenal. Everybody just comes dressed to the nines.
Yes.
And it is just a wonderful morning because we had gotten to the place where it was like 4 hours long of celebrating beautiful people, everyday people from literally all over the country, because we had people coming in from New York to receive their awards. And it's a very touching thing. I would love to go back to doing it eventually, but I have to be intentional about things that I have my little fingers in now.
Just for location. So it was in Douglasville, past Six Flags, going towards Carrollton.
That's correct.
For those people that were wondering.
That's right.
Just a quick question about that, though. Give us 3 or 4 people that were, if not the people, areas that were highlighted.
Sure. So we would recognize people in leadership, as well as love and relationships and professional relationships, people in journalism, specifically advocates and entrepreneurs as well. We really tried to do a nice cross-section of people so that we had a good, diverse group who could say, I am happy to do what I do, and so that other people would be inspired to follow. Because a lot of times serving is not glamorous,
Right.
but it is necessary. And if people don't get recognized, then other folks are not going to be inspired to do it.
Yeah, that's why I thought the concept was key, because one of the reasons why I personally don't watch a lot of award shows is because they give the awards to the same people over and over.
Yes.
And so you think about how many people that are contributing that are being overlooked
That's
each
right.
time. And so it grows old. So I just love the concept of you actually going outside of the normal scope and looking for others to recognize. I thought that was phenomenal. So hopefully when things settle down with the situation we have going on in this United States here with this outbreak, we can get back to something like that.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure there'll be even more people worthy to be recognized at that point. So,
Absolutely.
but I wanted to go back to one thing, though, that you mentioned about the Bold series. I remember you had the magazine's Bold Favor, and there was several different Bolds under that umbrella.
That's right.
So when you said you had to put that down, I know you guys had international distribution.
Yes.
I would love getting my issue notification and flipping through the magazines. And so I'm sure that was pretty tough to part with that.
It absolutely was. We worked really hard to build the relationships for us to do it. And like every other success story, you have some bumps. We started off with straight email because when we founded Bold Favor, it was supposed to be all digital. But my mother was emphatic that we also have print. And she was actually right, because it was a lot easier to sell when we had that hard copy in our hands. And so we were able to leverage a lot of the relationships that I'd built through a nonprofit that I founded with 3 other wonderful ladies years ago called the Jewel Jackson McCabe Emerging Leaders Institute. And so because of facilitators that we'd had with that program and the international travel that they did, the magazine was able to basically travel with them,
Okay.
which was really awesome. And so we went and we grew our magazine that way. There was one bump that we had, and I tell people all the time, I know that you are really working to mitigate your expenses, that you're really trying to make every dollar holler, right?
I like that.
But there are some things that you cannot skimp on. Early on, we built our list to several thousand, and I would use another company's email distribution services so that we weren't having to pay the couple of $1,000s that it would take to send out that mass email. And at first it was great, but then they turned and did some different things and went out of business doing that, And so I had to find another company, and they agreed to the same amount. And they said that they sent out the email, but I kept asking for the reports showing the click-throughs, the number of opens, and all the rest of it, and they couldn't produce. And then finally, they sent me a screenshot of a little pie about, I would say, about an inch wide, and that's all. And I was like, I don't understand why this is so hard. But then I started getting these emails, and one of them called me the C word.
Whoa.
Right. And so I finally got one of the people to respond back to tell me, like, why are you just out of the blue emailing me and calling me names? And they said that they had been spammed. Well, what the company had done is they'd taken our email list, and then they had run their own promotions through our email list. But they did it using our email address, which caused us to be listed as spam. And so it took a really long time and a lot of work to get off the blacklist. And then we were placed on the gray list, and it took time to get off the gray list. And that was just because I was trying to save money at the beginning.
Wow. Okay. So that could be one of the potential pitfalls of email lists and going with companies that may not, well, I guess,
they're just unethical.
Don't have the track record that you're
they're
looking
unethical.
for just to save money.
Yeah.
Because that can hurt your brand.
Oh, it did hurt the brand. There's just no getting around it, because we wound up having to start over from scratch. Because once a person puts you on spam, they don't take you off.
Good observation.
Yeah.
Right?
They don't take you off.
Okay. So you mentioned the Emerging Leaders Institute. And can you tell us a little bit more about that and who is the target audience for that?
Absolutely. So 12 years ago, 3 other ladies and I, Deshawn Mayweather, Ivana Foster, and Deborah Williamson, we founded an organization that would help women to learn the intangible leadership qualities, the things that they don't teach you in school, to move from management to actually the C-suite. We started the program because all of us were having the same issues, even though we were all in different industries. And we developed a leadership program with all of the training, and people just started to sign up. And now here we are 12 years later. We'll be launching again this fall. We're actually redoing the entire curriculum, which I'm really excited. And as far as the target audience, we actually have 5 different levels. We have the adults, of course. We have collegiate, high school, middle school, and we are going to roll out elementary school this year as well. So I'm excited about that.
So we're going to wrap up. We're getting close to the end, to the 30 minutes. And what I'm going to do for this, I'm not going to ask a question. I'm going to read a quote. Okay. And I want you to tell me what you think. I want you to finish it after where I stop. Do you dream of growing a business aligned with your life purpose into a thriving enterprise consisting of multiple ventures and streams of revenue? Then you are looking to build an empire. Empire Builder is a step-by-step overview of how to do it.
But first, you have to look within. What are the things that make you passionate? What makes you excited about getting up every day? Are you really ready to put to the side the things you used to do and the ideas that you used to have to do something that you've never done to achieve the dream that you say you want? Well, then you are ready to build your empire. So let's work together and get that done. Visit me online at LanitaMitchellBlackwell.com or follow me on social media with my name.
And with that,
the 30-minute podcast, full topics in half an hour with the IZZ and the lovely
Mariposa,
with our special guest, Lanita Mitchell Blackwell, Esquire, CPA,
CCLC,
Certified Public Accountant, Christian Life Coach. Certified.
Yes.
And you have been here again with us, Mariposa, the IZZ, the 30-minute podcast.
Until next time. It's our pleasure to have you tune in, so thanks for listening. Remember to follow us on IG and YouTube and give us ratings. 5 stars means you love what you heard. Feel free to drop us a comment and subscribe to the channel. Until next time.